cartoon featuring Little Brrm. Little Brrm was in his garage, looking at all the cars and trucks going by. There were so many, all different shapes and colours. Just then, a group of very old cars passed by. They must have taken part in the old Crocs race, which happened every year around this time. The sight of these old cars reminded him of his grandfather, whom he hadn't seen for a long time. It gave him an idea. Why not go and visit Grandpa? It's a long way to travel, but if I start out early in the morning, it wouldn't be so bad. He decided there and then that he would go and see his grandfather. The sun was just creeping over the hill the following morning as Little Brrm started out on his journey. He made sure that he had everything he needed for the long trip ahead. He motored gently along, enjoying his journey on a nice sunny day. It was about noon when he reached the village where his grandfather lived, and, a little tired, he drove up to Grandpa's garage. He saw his grandfather outside, contentedly ticking over and enjoying a relaxing smoke. Little Brrm drove up to him. "Hello, Grandpa. How are you?"
"Hey? What's that?"
said his grandfather, who then looked up.
"Oh, it's you, Alf. How are things?"
"No, it's not. It's Little Brrm."
"Little Brrm?"
said his grandfather with excitement.
Well, hello, my lad. Oh, it is good to see you. Well, I'm sorry I didn't recognize you. My lamps are a bit dim these days. I mistook you for an old friend of mine, Alfie Romero, who comes around to see me quite a bit. Company, you know. Well. Little Brrm, what a lovely surprise."
"How are you?" asked Little Brrm.
"Oh, not so bad. Cough and a splutter too, and some of me joints ache now and then, but nothing to worry about. Oh, do come in. You must be tired out after your long journey."
They both went into the garage for some cool water and a chat about the old days, something his grandfather knew a lot about. Little Brrm settled down with his grandfather by the stove and waited for him to start talking about his favourite subject. "Grandfather," said Little Brrm, "would you tell me about one of your wartime adventures? They're always so exciting." Little Brrm loved to hear his grandfather's stories about when he was in the army and all the things that happened to him. And his grandfather got a lot of pleasure out of telling them.
"Ah, the army, you say? Well, now let me think.
After thinking for a while, his grandfather started.
"Oh, yes, there was the time when I was in the Great War over in France. I was taking some very important secret plans of the war to General Headquarters. I was a major and on very special duty. The plans I was carrying were vital to us winning the war. All of a sudden, I was attacked by dive bombers. Vroom! Boom, 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 boom."
Little Brrm was totally captivated by his grandfather's descriptions and was almost reliving the scene with him. His grandfather continued.
"Oh, it was terrible. Explosions and bullets, noise and commotion. Oh, there was so much going on that I found it difficult to know where I was going. Anyway, I just kept on driving. I wasn't going to let a little thing like that stop me." Gradually, the bombing and the noise stopped, and
"What happened then?" said Little Brrm, anxiously interrupting.
Just a minute. Don't be in such a hurry. I'm going as fast as I can. Where was I? Oh, yes, I know. Well, it became nice and peaceful once more, so I continued on my way. And after a short time, I realised that I was completely lost. For a while, I tried to find my bearings, going first one way and then the other, but I still didn't know where I was. What can I do now? I thought to myself. What would you have done? He said, looking at Little Brrm. Little Brrm couldn't think what he would have done in the same circumstances, so he just looked up at his grandfather with a blank stare. Well, this is what I did, continued his grandfather. I looked around for someone to ask, because I've always found that asking the way home when you're lost is the best thing to do. The only trouble was, there was nobody to ask. So I drove along until I found someone. Then in front of me, I saw a couple of trucks. I was just about to ask them the way, when I realised that they too were lost. They were arguing about which way to go. One wanted to go one way, and the other one wanted to go the other way. It seemed that I was the best person to take the initiative and choose. As I was a superior officer, this is what they expected, and so they agreed to follow me, thinking I might know the way back. Of course, I didn't know the way any more than they did. But the three of us travelled along together, going in all sorts of different directions. After a while, we came across a big tank and 3 other cars who were also lost. They too agreed to follow me, thinking I knew where I was going, but of course I didn't. As we travelled along, many other vehicles joined us. Guns, tanks, cars and trucks, until we became a convoy miles long. There must have been thousands of vehicles following me, thinking I knew the way, when I didn't. Anyway, it must have been my lucky day, because I eventually managed to find our general headquarters, and what a relief that was. But to my surprise, all the vehicles who had been following me were on the other side in the war, fighting against us. They were enemy vehicles, so they were all taken prisoner and not allowed to leave our headquarters. Well, with all those valuable vehicles taken away from them, the enemy couldn't carry on fighting, so they gave up, just like that. And that's how I won the war for our side and got this medal to prove it. Little Brrm looked down at the badge on his grandfather's bumper. "Car," he said. "That's a wonderful story." "Yeah, I suppose it is," said his grandfather. Little Brrm was really impressed with the exciting tale, and he lost all sense of time listening to it. He was brought back to reality when his grandfather started speaking again. "Although there was the time when we had to parachute behind the enemy lines in Burma, it was—" "I'm sorry, Grandpa," interrupted Little Brrm, "but I don't have the time to hear another story. I shall have to start making for home soon. I do have a long way to go." "Oh, very well," said his grandfather. "Well, it's a pity you have to go so soon, but I suppose you do have a long journey in front of you. But you will come and visit me again, won't you?" Little Brrm promised he would come and visit his grandfather, soon. They said goodbye to each other. "Bye-bye, Grandpa," said Little Brrm. "Bye, lad," said his grandfather. "Come back soon." As Little Brrm drove back home, he couldn't help thinking how wonderful it must have been to have had all those marvellous experiences and to have led such an exciting life. He consoled himself with the thought that maybe his grandfather was exaggerating slightly, just to make the story more interesting. And perhaps most of his adventures were, well, just stories, and not really true. Little Brrm didn't mind at all if they were so. His grandfather gave him a lot of pleasure with his tales of adventure, which was all that really mattered. Little Brrm was happy. It had been a lovely day.